we're here to talk about mind control again. I mean, we touched on it in the previous interview. Can you start, Neil, because you've been gathering more sort of information about the subject since you were on.
Yeah.
And can you give us an overview, because a lot of people they have no idea what you mean by mind control.
Sure. Okay. I mean, what most people refer to when they're talking about mind control, that you'll hear the word MK Ultra spoken again and again and again. MK Ultra was essentially one of the American mind control projects. It started in 1953, Technical Service Division by Sidney Gottlieb. What they were really sort of initially involved with was trying to get sort of truth serums and things that they could extract information from, foreign spies for espionage purposes. But it grew on to be Manchurian candidates, controlled assassins, hypno-programming, which basically means that you can impart a large amount of information into somebody without them knowing, and then use that for espionage purposes. And then later it was sort of used, these people were used as literally mind-controlled slaves to be used perhaps in sexual purposes for blackmail techniques and stuff like that. And what mind control means is either an external or an internal control of the thoughts and processes of another person.
So when this was, because it stemmed from the Nazi research, didn't it?
Yeah, a lot of it.
Mind control and...
Yeah,
that's where the MK
comes from, minds and controlling us, basically. So yeah,
some of the paperclip scientists that defected from Nazi Germany to the CIA took some of what they had found.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it was, as we talked on the previous show, was based on sort of trauma bonding, which Josef Mengele was very, very interested in. And obviously, at places like Dachau and Auschwitz, they were testing people with mescaline and electroshock and sleep deprivation, isolation tanks and things like this. And basically the process of mind control works by shattering the mind to cause dissociation, so that essentially the brain is split into separate personalities, or alters as they would be called. And often these compartments don't have knowledge of each other. They feel that they are the entire person. They may have an implanted background, or maybe not even think that. A lot of people sometimes basically find out that they've been part of these programs because they suddenly realize, I've got 10 years of my life missing, or something like that, or I cannot put myself in any place at this given time.
Some people would say, well, in a Western democracy, how can this possibly be going on? How can this be being sanctioned by our democratic, tax money? Well, into programming someone to be something that they inherently aren't. Surely this was an evil thing done by the Nazis, and when it, surely how would the American democratic system or the British system allow this to? How are they allowed to do it?
Well, first off, they don't care. This is the point. Your tax pounds, pence, dollars, they're being used right now to murder children in the Middle East. Okay, they just simply do not care. I mean, the thing
when you say they don't care, you're not talking about. Are you talking about David Cameron, or are you talking about Barack Obama? Who doesn't care?
I think the powers that be. This is the thing that you find when you sort of look into the mind control, is it's not simply American or German or English. A lot of these things are intertwined, and so you get the impression that perhaps there's a cabal maybe above the concept of nation states. But I mean, even for example, the CIA, it knew that the activity that it was doing was illegal. In 1957, there was a memo sent to the Inspector General Lyman, and he basically said that precautions must be taken.
So if you read that for us, Neil. So this is as early as 1957.
Well, I mean, it started prior to this, but in 1957 they sent a memo that said precautions must be taken, not only to protect the operatives from exposure to enemy forces, but also to conceal these activities from the American public in general. The knowledge that the agency is engaged in unethical and illicit activities would have serious repercussions in political and diplomatic circles and would be detrimental to the accomplishment. What they're really bothered about is the accomplishment of the thing. They don't really care that it's being used against the will with unknowing experimentees and stuff like that. For example, in Creedmoor State Hospital, there was a children's ward of 450 patients aged from 4 to 15. And
this is in the United States?
This is in the United States. And basically what they were doing, they were using LSD training on these children. These are very, very, very young children. They're giving them LSD, psilocybin, UML, which is like a methylated...
Right. So how many people in the democratic government would know that this hospital is being used to experiment on children in a in America?
It's difficult to say, but many universities, hospitals, and institutions were used for this. I mean, if you look at the people that were involved in it, George Estabrooks and Ewan Cameron and William Sargent, these are the very cream of the psychological world. You know, Ewan Cameron was director of the board of World Psychology at one point. William Sargent is basically, you know, head of Thomas Hospital London and Tavistock Institute programs like that. These are very eminent psychologists, scientists, and people like that are using it. In top level of the military, you've got Michael Aquino, John B. Alexander, and people like this. You know, who are very well thought of within their circles, and they're aware of it.
All right, Neil, well, what we've done, we've actually, or you've named some of the projects which are known about. Yeah. The sort of code names. Yeah. And, you know, clearly there are probably projects that no one has ever known about, but I'll just list the names. We've got MK Ultra, which originated in the Nazi Germany. We've got Project Monarch, which we'll come on to. We've got Project Phoenix, Montauk, and then we've got the UK project, which is Project Mannequin, an alleged project. And
possibly Talent as well, which is another one that people have spoken about.
Okay, and you think that all of these projects have got sub-projects within them?
Well, this is the thing, like basically when people talk about MK Ultra, they basically mean mind control. They could actually mean Artichoke, Bluebird, Chatter, MK Delta. They've got various different names. It's just basically simpler if we term them under MK Ultra. Claudia Mullin, who's a very famous sort of victim of these mind control experiments, basically she spoke to a US Presidential Advisory Board in 1995, and she was taken by Sidney Gottlieb. She was an already abused child. She was taken when she was 7, and she was subjected to electroshock, LSD, various other chemicals and stuff like that. When she was 9, she was taken to Maryland under the supervision of the American government to be trained as a prostitute. Okay, right. This is a 9-year-old girl. 9? Yes, 9. You know.
I mean, so was this Project Monarch?
No, this was actually a sub-project of MK Ultra called Artichoke, and we know this to be fact because basically she spoke about this in open court. And what?
So was this in the mid-90s, where there was a number of women who tried to sue the government for being used in mind control projects?
Yeah, Linda McDonald, Claudia Mullin, several others, and you can find this all on the internet. This, you know.
So what would somebody need to type into Google in order to find these? Because there were open hearings where there were cameras, wasn't there?
Linda McDonald, Claudia Mullin. There you go. Start off with those.
Google those names, and you will be able to find them giving testimony in a court, trying to basically bring the American government to account over secret mind control.
Well, what Claudia Mullin said was that basically she was used as sort of an entrapment. Basically, she'd be used as a 9-year-old prostitute, and she'd be used to lure and blackmail politicians, heads of academia, you know, popular celebrities and people like that. You know, just to get them into a position where we've filmed you with this 9-year-old girl.
Right. So at some point in the politicians, you know, maybe on business or whatever, this 9-year-old will be offered to them, who would then, you know, do whatever, and then would be filmed.
Yes, secretly filmed.
And then it's a way of then controlling that politician.
Yeah, basically they're now in your pocket. And basically she was very accurate with a lot of her things. She spoke about Sidney Gottlieb. She accurately described him. She spoke about, well, she didn't speak about Ewan Cameron. Ewan Cameron was the mind control doctor that was interested in sort of sleep deprivation. So depatterning was what he called it, basically wiping a mind so that you can implant a new. And he was sued, well, the board of governors was sued by Linda McDonald, and she actually got a sizable amount of money because it was proved that they did do these experiments. What happened was basically Claudia kept speaking about, to her therapist and a lawyer, about this person called the cameraman, who would, a Scottish person that would speak, that would call her lassie all the time. And years later, it was Valerie Wolfe, who was her solicitor. She was basically watching some stock footage of CIA doctors, and somebody exactly as Claudia Mullin described, with a Scottish accent, who kept calling people lassie, came on the screen, and this turned out to be Ewan Cameron, who's the sort of famous MK Ultra doctor. So again, it adds credence to her story. Right.
So this is one reason why you know, a cabal might want to control somebody is to get to let them have sex with an underage person who's under mind control, and they then get control of that politician.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any cases known where, let's say, that's happened to a leader, but that leader has then said, right, well, you're not going to control me, I'm going to do what I want anyway. And then they have to then bring out that evidence in a court. Do you see what I mean? In order to sort of carry out the threat.
Yeah, they've got to sort of expose them. It probably has, but not to my... The one that I know about, it's not exactly what you're saying about, is Paul Benassi. And this was to do with the Franklin conspiracy, which was the Franklin Saving and Loans. It was a saving and credit union in Omaha, Nebraska. And basically, Larry King, who was the rising star...
Larry King, he's the... Well, probably the most prominent chat show host.
No, not the chat show host Larry King.
Right.
Lawrence King, Larry King, he was a Republican senator.
All right, so different Larry King.
Yeah, different Larry King. And what happened was he was basically running, it was alleged that he was running a child sex ring through a charity called Boys Town. Now, what happened was basically he was found to have defrauded or helped to defraud $40 million from the Savings and Loan Unit in Franklin. Now, Senator John DeCamp investigated with this, and basically what happened was Paul Benassi was one of the kids that came forward. There was over 80 children that came forward and basically said, this is what's happened. We've been taken from this charity and we're being used as sex slaves. But it was worse than that, because Paul Benassi was basically saying that he was employed, so to speak, as a mind-controlled operative to find children on order for paedophiles and to assist in kidnapping them. Basically what he would do, he'd be going to a playground with a pocket full of sweets or whatever, go around the corner dragging these kids around there, and which time there'd be a black van or whatever, and 2 CIA operatives would bag over the kid and steal them. And you know, one of the cases that this sounds outrageous, but basically it was taken to a court case, and Paul Benassi was actually awarded £1 million in damages, saying that the judge, who was Judge Urbaum, wrote that King continually subjected the plaintiff Paul Benassi to repeated sexual assaults, false imprisonments, organised and directed satanic rituals, and he was forced to scavenge for children to be part of the defendant King's sexual abuse and pornography ring. Okay, he was forced to go into masochistic orgies with other children. Okay, he has multiple personality disorder and has 14 distinct personalities. Okay, now what's important to notice is that Lawrence King was not found guilty of any of these sexual crimes. He was found guilty of the defrauding. But basically what that does is it vindicates. Paul Benassi was essentially put in jail for perjury, and there was another girl called Alicia Owens who was actually allegedly made pregnant by the local sheriff during this sort of incident. Right.
So you think, I mean, what they use small boys if the person happens to be homosexual? Is that what you like a rent boy type scenario?
Well, yeah, I would assume so. I mean, the case of Johnny Gosch, which is, again, I'd suggest people Google Johnny Gosch, is Gosch, and he was a paper boy. I'm not sure, he may have been from Nebraska, I might have got that wrong. Basically, he went missing, and Paul Benassi came out in court and said he was the person that helped kidnap Johnny Gosch. Johnny Gosch apparently turned up many years later, spoke to his mother, and he's not revealed his sort of whereabouts for his own safety, but his mother went into court and in open court stated that her son was kidnapped by the US government for use in mind control and sexual entrapment sort of cases and things like that. And again, this was in court, and during this, Paul Benassi mentioned Michael Aquino, who we spoke about on the previous thing. Basically, Michael Aquino, who was termed the Colonel, was involved allegedly in buying Johnny Gosch. They were basically, this is an organised thing where they would sort of have a catalogue of kids, they would kidnap the kids to order, and then they would use them either for sex, pornography, snuff films, or other things. I mean, Paul Benassi made...
So what is a snuff film? Explain what that is.
The snuff film is basically a pornographic film, or it's a film in which the participant does not know that they're going to be killed and is killed on camera. It's like an on-camera murder. And people will tell you it's a myth that these things don't exist. They do exist. They were found in the Belgian Parliament. Okay, like just.
So I mean, in a snuff film, who are they killing in these? Just unknown people, or
yeah, unknown people, or that's the thing. Somebody will come on and it's someone being tortured to death in the video. Now, Paul Benassi.
So just to stop you there, Neil, what would be the point of making a snuff film?
For pleasure, for the perverse pleasure of who's watching it. It's either, I don't know, they get some sexual thrill out of it, or it's just the concept of this is a forbidden thing. This is really taboo and dark. That's I couldn't possibly say why people.
Well, are you saying that? I mean, we're saying that that a cabal is controlling or programming these children to be prostitutes, okay,
Yes.
for a particular purpose which we've just discussed.
Yeah.
But the snuff film, are you saying that
That's
a cabal which exists above government is also making snuff films?
For distribution, for sale, and for just for fun, essentially,
Right.
you know. And what Paul Benassi said was basically that he was at Bohemian Grove and watched snuff films being made. Now, he alleges, and this is in the Franklin Conspiracy documentary, that Hunter S. Thompson, famous journalist, was actually filming it. And was, I mean, I don't know about that, but shortly after this revelation, Hunter S. Thompson killed himself. So who knows? Who knows? Paul Benassi also mentions, and what I suggest is you find the Gunderson Chronicles, which is an excellent. He's being interviewed by Ted Gunderson. He mentions George H. Bush, the scene, George H.W. Bush. He says he talks about numerous drug-taking and paedophilic activities performed by the former president, former head of the CIA, that he says he's witnessed. I mean, if he's been sort of vindicated,
I guess we have to say that this is alleged by.
It's
somebody,
alleged by Paul Benassi, but you know,
we're not stating that that's the fact. We're saying that this person alleged.
this person has said it. This is not me. Like so.
I mean, would the snuff films not be used as bribery of some kind?
Yeah, very possibly as well.
Right.
You know, who knows what this sort of use. I mean, the other thing is that basically the sort of satanic element of them, in the sort of the trauma-based, you know, if we're breaking down personalities and things like that, we've seen how, like, you know, the military's got links to the Temple of Set through Michael Aquino and stuff like that. Perhaps these rituals, I mean, there's several things. Rituals, sort of repeated rituals, basically, in the same way that television drops you into an alpha state brainwave.
Yes.
Mantras, dogma, singing hymns, that sort of thing, because you're basically doing the same thing, it also drops you in the same thing. So I suppose you could be programmed that. Also, the sort of the trauma of the satanic ritual abuse. And the other thing that happens as well is that basically, because you need to sort of be abusing and destroying these kids in these rituals or whatever, they'll have people dress up with a Mickey Mouse mask or as a devil or something like that. And so when they tell their parents or the police or whoever, Mickey Mouse touched me inappropriately, it sounds like it's made up.
Yes. Well, very disturbing stuff, Neil. We're going to go for a short break now. And after the break, we're going to touch on some of the other projects, Project Monarch, Project Phoenix, Montauk, and Mannequin. So don't go away.